button and we'll get started.
Let's do it.
A very pleasant good evening to everybody. This is Story Night in December. Very pleasant good evening is something that will resonate with some folks out there. We are live. I am in Port Orchard. We've got folks here in Bremerton and Port Orchard. And so, yes, raise your hand if you're in Bremerton. And then there's two of us in Port Orchard. So we are representing the south half of the county tonight here on Story Night. As you know, Story Night is, as most of you know, we for 5 years would meet once a month at the Cloverleaf Sports Bar and Grill. We'd get up on stage and we'd have a few people tell stories. It was a grand time. We were having lots of fun. And then people started getting sick. So we've gone indoors. Well, we were indoors before, but we've gone home. And we're staying home these days and still keeping a place for Story Night once a month in our schedule, more or less. Holding a place for it. Obviously, we will be happy to see you all in person again. But until then, we're going to work with what we have. Tonight, I'm doing something a little different. I've invited 4 of our storytelling regulars from Story Night and asked them to answer 4 questions that we have set up. Before I do that, I'm going to turn this off of speaker view, and I'm actually going to Jose and Priya, I didn't ask you this beforehand, so folks, you're watching the sausage as we do this. Do you have, which one, is one of you ready to present something, and do you need to share screen and all of that too? Or would you like to?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me put the spotlight on you. And right. Do I have to enable anything to make you shoot, or you can just do it, right?
Yes, well, let's see. No, you have to enable the participant screen sharing.
Okay. Well, I will get that. Yeah. Who can share? Who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? Okay. Does it work now?
Yes.
Okay.
It works. It worked now.
Okay.
All right. So, hello, everybody. I'm Jose Castro with Kitsap Regional Library. It's my pleasure to be with you all. I want to share my screen really quick to answer a common question I receive on Leave Answers weekly. And it's on how to place a hold in our catalog. Here is my beautiful screen, but this is what I want to share. So if you go to the library catalog, the address will be catalog.krl.org, which is the one I am highlighting on the top of the screen. If you go there, you will have access to our catalog. Please note, it's not the same, the library web page, than the catalog, and that's very important to know. So once you are here, you click over login, and then after you log in, you go into this web page. And this is my account, so everybody can see it. It's my library account, so not a biggie. And if you're going to, for example, do a new search of this is only for physical books, DVDs, and CDs. Also, you can place digital copies hold here, but I will recommend only to keep it on books, CDs, and DVDs. And let's say that you want to find, you're looking for a book on hope and resilience, which is one of the topics that we will be showcasing later in one of our activities. Resilience. Oh, I spelled it right. So I spelled it wrong. So okay, now, and then you will have all these options here. And let's say that I want to place a hold on hunger, hope, and healing. The first thing I would recommend is check where the book is at, which brand. So click over here, and you will see like, oh, the book is in Bainbridge, but it doesn't matter because in KeepSat Regional Library, you can place a hold on a book on any branch and they send this book to the branch of your choice. So let's say that I really need this book. I place a hold just by clicking where it says like place hold, and then I can choose the branch I want to pick up this book. It takes a couple of days, but we are always like have offered this service to our patrons. You click over submit request, and there you go. So if you want to follow up now that patrons can't come in on the library because of what we all know, COVID, you go over my account, and once the book is ready, you will receive an email. So if you go to your host list, once the status changed from pull list to hold shelf, that means that you're ready. And then you can click on this link that is there, and then you will have like the calendar choices and where are you going to pick up the book. Please pick the book at the same branch that you reside, all right? Because if you made an appointment in Bainbridge and then they would not know that you're going to pick it up there, so it would be a mess. But here it is. It's super simple. So just like search for the book over new search, then place the hold. Once the status changed to hold shelf, go to my account, click here, and fill out this form. That's a common question I receive every Friday. Also, feel free to go to caret.org if you are not finding your way on doing this. No worries, we have like librarians and assistant librarians ready to help, and you may receive a response in 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on how many requests that I receive. So thank you very much, Steve. I'm very happy that Story Night is rolling back again, and we have a new setting to share with you all. Now I'm passing my virtual mic to Priya.
Thank you. I just want to briefly share one more thing, and then we can jump right into the stories. So hello, I'm Priya. I'm at the Downtown Bremerton branch KRL. And I'm just going to really quickly share a new service we have called Book Bundles. I have hyped it up the past couple months, but it is just a really cool service that we're offering, and we want to promote it as much as possible. So say you have put things on hold, you've exhausted your reading list, and you're like, I need something more. I want just like a new bunch of books to read. I want someone to pick something for me, or I want movies in this totally different genre that I know nothing about. Can someone help me with that? So we have this thing called Book Bundles, which you can request through our website. You go over to our Read, Watch, Listen tab right here and go right down to Book Bundles. It's this little web form. It's got a cute little graphic here. Basically, it is to sort of emulate the process of walking into our branch, picking some stuff off the shelf and just browsing, but we will do it for you. So you fill out this little form here with your name, some contact information, your library card number, which library you would like your bundle to go to, who the bundle is for. So if it's for your kids, your sisters, your cousin, whatever, or yourself, or if you are an adult and just want to read a different age range or vice versa, select which one you're looking for, fiction or nonfiction, or both. And you can limit it by the type of books that you want to read. Feel free to select as many as you want. And then lastly, give us a little detail about what topic or genre or general feeling you're going for. And we will select 3 to 10 items for you to pick up. It is the same pickup process as regular things that you put on hold. So nothing else has changed. You'll get a notification when it's ready to pick up. But this is a really cool service if you want to learn something but don't really feel comfortable searching our catalog that deeply, or you just want some recommendations. Perhaps you're listening to the stories tonight and you want some guidance on goal setting or New Year's resolutions. You want to craft some gifts for your family for the holidays. You want to learn the history of Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah, everyone. Put that in the description and we will pick some books out for you. Let us know if you have any questions. You know where to find us. Okay, on to the stories. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you. Are we talking about One Book and One Community yet, or is that still under wraps?
Yeah, it's still on the wrap.
Okay. All right. Just for those of you scoring at home, the library does one book, one community. Lots of libraries do that. And someday soon, we're going to hear an announcement about what the selection is for this coming year. And every year we have participated as in the one book, one community by having our theme rely on that. We recommend people read the book and people talk about the themes that are in that book. That's going to be happening soon. And it's going to be virtual or it's going to be online. We're not going to be in person. It'll happen before we're back with each other. That said, look forward to that. That's always an interesting thing to participate in, reading the same book. Tonight, our format is going to be a little different. I asked four of our Story Night regulars to join us tonight to talk about 4 questions related to 2020. I know all we can ever talk about this year is this year and everything we're going through, and it's been a challenge. I don't know anybody who feels like this has been a wonderful year. I've not talked to anybody who is enjoying any of this. So, well, some of it. I mean, the Dodgers won the World Series, so I mean, I had that going for me. But that's kind of a trivial thing. I would have put up with another loss, honestly. But I've got 4 questions, 4 people answering 4 questions, and they're going to do it one at a time. And so we're going to start tonight with Santa's helper, Chris Larson. And I call him Santa's helper. He may elaborate a little on that, but we're going to start with him. And so, Chris, are you ready to go?
Steve, I'm ready to go, my friend.
Okay. So we're going to keep this in gallery view because we're also going to be able to ask questions of each other. So after each question, if you have a question for one of our participants, I'd say just shout it out. Let's see how that works. And if I have to maintain order, then I'll come up with some other way to do it, or I'll just take away that privilege from you. But
you're not thinking there could be anarchy this year, could you?
And yeah. Do you ever see that Saturday Night Live bit with the woman that was playing the comedian that says, "Don't get me started, don't not even get me started." Yeah, don't. No. Let's not talk about anarchy and democracy and those kind of things. It's a little sensitive right now. Okay, so Chris, are you ready to go?
I am truly ready to go, my friend.
Thank you for kicking this off tonight. So, what was something you planned to do in 2020 that you had to completely set aside?
Well, I would say just one word: get on stage. The stage, man. I was, and you had been at a number of the different events that, we'd had a spate there, 42 sellout shows in a row here in the Kitsap area, and I was looking forward to a lot more of that. So we went from, just wait 2 weeks. Remember that, Steve? We were told it was just, I don't know about you, but I was told 2 weeks. And wow. I think it stopped. I'm not sure if you've noticed that, but pretty sure we tried to do something live, but to Zoom about a month or 2 into a 2-week wait. But I miss audiences, Steve. I miss the sound of people spilling a drink and laughing at before the punchlines come out because they find something funny, and comics not knowing what to do when all of a sudden people are laughing at a part where they're not sure that was supposed to be the funny part. I've always loved giving opportunities to new comics, and to see them trying to find their voice on stage is something I truly miss right now. The live aspect of live, and the community coming as one person is spilling their guts up on stage, and trying to get a laugh, and that path to finding what humor is something that 2020 has taken away. They say there's going to be a pivot. They say there's going to be, some way back. But I just hope when we come out of this that people are going to want to be in the room together and watch somebody try and find their voice up on stage, and then share afterwards about an experience that everybody experienced in the same room at the same time. So I'm
sorry, I'm cutting you off here.
Please do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and so I guess that's how I'll maintain order, is if somebody's going too long. Cut it off there. No,
Yeah.
I wanted to say, it's only in the last year, or not the last year, but in the last few years, I finally came to be okay with the fact that I really like being on stage. I thought there was something wrong with me, that I loved it. And when I was a senior in high school, I got up to give a speech, and there was this thunderous applause, and I just soaked it in. And I've always thought about that moment, and it was like, well, duh, it's like, you like being on stage, you like that. So use it to, you don't have to think that you're an attention suck. You can just use that to your best, use your skills and hone, or I don't know, take advantage of that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And the other thing you said was, I remember talking to you a few weeks after this started, and I said, are you getting any kind of word from people about when you'll be able to be back on stage?
Right.
And you said, yeah, people are saying August. And,
right.
And if we make it August of 2021, we're lucky. So,
and Steve, I agree with that right now. If you were to ask me when I, think, by reading any of the tea leaves and things, I just really know that it's going to be 6 months after a good period of vaccines actually working or whatever, and then the ability for people to come out and feel comfortable at something live.
Anybody else have questions for Chris?
I just want to say, Chris, the hardest I've ever laughed at story night was the story that you told about being Santa, and I pulled a muscle laughing at that story, like as if I had worked out. So as far as bringing the humor and sharing the laughter, that was definitely the biggest laugh I ever got at story night.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I know Steve knows this, and I know a couple of you know this as well. Steve's story nights, the Kids at Regional Library story nights, has given me reasons to work on my writing skills and look at things differently. And I get to play with a live audience and practice new things. So you got to see something that I was working on, and I'm glad you found it humorous. So thank you.
I've seen it a few times now. That story. So I've seen how you've worked on it. It's great. It's great to take opportunities, and I will say vice versa, that I've had the opportunity to go on the comedy stage because Chris is generous and lets me go on stage, and I, knowing that responsibility, knowing the different obligation you have when you try to go on stage and make people funny, it's just there's so much to learn for that. That's something I miss, is being able to go up and fail, and because I did.
Steve, you've got a couple scars, and I've witnessed you coming off of a knife fight that you didn't know there was people in the audience with daggers and stuff, and it's an amazing experience, the healing process of looking back at they were just words, but how do they hurt me so badly, man?
Yeah. All right. So let's go to the next thing. What's something you've learned this year? And it doesn't have to relate to the pandemic.
And are we back with me?
Yes. Yeah. You own the stage, Steve, right now.
I got to tell you, I didn't know that I could sit for a day. Because all of a sudden I had nothing and nowhere to go. I couldn't go anywhere if I wanted to. I was told I wasn't able to do what I do. And there was a day where all of a sudden it was done. And I didn't realize that I could do actually absolutely nothing. And I got to tell you, I hated it. I hated everything about, this don't do anything, because I think you've known me as a multitasker my entire world. And the amount of stuff I do for local charities, like right now, I'm going to play with Toys for Tots and the Shop with a Cop and those types of things. Even though we're doing it socially distant and nowhere near what we've done in the past. And today, the Bell Ringer golf tournament, again, socially distant, not like it was, no banquet, no those types of things. So I've garnered a level of patience that I didn't think I ever had. And I know I truly dislike the empty feeling of not being able to do what I want to be doing.
Yeah, because I mean, and you're hitting it here, but still, it's way more fun when you've got a room full of people.
Yes.
Anyone else in response to that one?
I just want to say that, Chris, I feel you when you say that you can spend a whole day seated at, not doing nothing, but, I think that was yesterday, like seated, I started like working, and then I took a break, but in between like taking a break and being working, you don't see like a difference because you're still seated and you're still watching the computer, or maybe you're like, you put some music. And for me, that's
Yeah.
like always bugging my mind. Like I have the same like impression.
Yeah. The whole idea of stop is something I've never known in my life. And to deal with stop for nothing that I have control of over is it truly is a pain that I never knew could be painful.
We have somebody online named Mickey Mouse 9944, and Mickey Mouse is saying, I walk everywhere for real. Jeff Allen is saying he learned that he has great hair. Does anybody second that? He does have great hair. I'll give him that. All right, Chris, who is someone in this past year who you believe deserves specific, special or specific acknowledgement?
Well, I'm just going to, I do a lot of things with our first responders, Steve, and I just cannot believe the level of care that we're getting, both with our medical staff and our police, fire, and military, and what they're having to do and all the extra steps that they're involved in doing what their day-to-day operations are. There's just a special place in heaven for the care that we're getting right now. And I just, I just can't believe that they're, they still want to do what they're doing during the middle of a pandemic, when it's like, I think it's a good time to retire or get out or whatever, but still they go to work every day at the medical centers and at our police and fire. So kudos to our first responders right there.
Yeah, they can't really ignore this. They can't, they can't avoid this. So finally,
yeah,
when will you know this is over?
I'm going to know this is over when I don't think about it. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to be different when we come out of this. I hope if we learned one thing, people are going to know, wash your hands. And if you don't feel good, stay home. Don't share. If don't think that you've got to, save the world by going out in it, because that's the exact opposite of what you're doing. So I'm going to know it's over when you and I get in a car together, Steve, and we're driving down to get a double, and away we go. You know what I mean?
I'm ready for that.
I think that's an excellent knowing it's over, is Steve and Chris getting a double together, man.
We'll post photos.
Yes. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions for Chris or comments? Want to follow up on that? All right. So as some of you know, Chris is Santa's helper. And so Santa may call on him tonight. So he may
Yes.
duck out. He may duck out later. So
Yeah.
if that happens, Mickey Mouse, by the way, her name is Leah, and wants to know what is a double. Chris, do you want to explain what a double is?
Wow, I would love to, and it's something you need to know. It's coming closer and closer to the Northwest. They're now in Kaiser, Oregon, and it is to probably Steve and I, the world's greatest hamburger. Their burgers are the best. You don't have to get the fries. That's fine. But it's worth getting a couple of doubles, and they're just an amazing cheeseburger. So there you go.
I thought you were talking about a coffee with double cream and double sugar. That's the Canadian double.
Yeah. In-N-Out Burgers started out down in California, just in Southern California, and they're starting to move, and hopefully we'll see them in the Northwest Seattle area the next 5 years. So.
Yeah, and the Canadian double can come in handy too. So that sounds fun. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Anything to add after following Chris?
It's not necessarily a question, but I really wanted to kind of just mention that I resonate with the thought and the feeling of a pain that we didn't know would be a pain, just that things that we took so much for granted, and the profound feeling of loss, of routine, of, community, and things that maybe we didn't even consider up until this point. So I just wanted to kind of echo that.
I appreciate you, touching on that, because to me, it was, in my world, I've never known a glass half empty. I've been, not only is the glass always half full, I can't believe I have a glass. I'm eternally optimistic and stuff. And then to feel for the first time something that I know others, and I have empathy for it, the pain people have in their lives. And to me, the emptiness of not being able to do what my calling is. And I truly did, force myself to reach out to people I haven't talked to in a long time, delved into my phone books, going back to high school days and stuff, and rekindling some friendships, just to make sure that they're okay. And then also to fill my days with positivity, because I thrive on that. So, thank you for touching on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Chris, I'm wondering, do you think that there's any way that this will be my last question for you, because we're going to move on. But do you feel like there's any way that your comedy will be better based on what you've learned this year? I mean, I know you would have.
It's got to be better because that's coming from me. Yeah. Yeah, Steve. I've done some writing, and I got it. And this because I talked to you about it before the whole pandemic hit. I'd written a show that I was so proud of. I was looking to unveil it going into the summertime, and it's just sitting on a shelf. And I've written more things and different things, and I'm writing things that have absolutely nothing to do with the pandemic, because I think people are going to get tired of even hearing the word and not wanting to hear the word and the scars that it bring up. So, yeah, I hope, you know what, and this is just a scary thing to say, I hope that I'll be able to do humor after it's all done, and that people will be willing to enjoy it and enjoy a night out, an evening out. So that's kind of a ominous way to leave it, but I have hope that people are going to want to break bread again and come out and enjoy a live show.
Yeah, it may be a slow build, but I think it'll all be back.
Yeah, that's good.
Because, you know, we thought we needed it before, and the reality is we do. We need to gather. So we're doing the best we can right now, I suppose.
Yes, we are. And we're doing it by doing this, man.
Mhm.
And I'm digging the format tonight. And I'm digging the rapping with the other speakers that I dig their stuff when they're at story night. So this is a cool little format you got going on tonight, Steve.
Well, let's go to the next our next storyteller. We'll still call you storytellers. Alicia, are you ready to go?
I'm ready, Steve.
Okay. So we'll start. Alicia has told several stories. What's the guy's name? I'm drawing a blank. Mike. Yeah, Mike has figured prominently in Alicia's stories. All I had to do was think of Mike Etkin, who is another one of our regulars. But by the way, and I want to throw a little shout out to Allison Loris. If you have thoughts, I don't know that she gets to watch these, but she just I don't know that she would want me to tell everybody this, but she posted it on Facebook. So how private can it be? She broke her ankle in 2 places recently on the basement stairs. So please have your thoughts for her. You know, there's never a good time for that, but can 2020 be any more 2020? Not to make light of that. All right, Alicia. So something you had planned to do that you had to give up.
So a couple of story nights back in the before time of 2019, I had talked about my battle with imposter syndrome and how that had really spurred me into going and pursuing my master's. Well, I graduated in September. Yay. And I was really looking forward to putting that skill set back into being in the classroom. So my full-time job is I'm a cancer researcher in Seattle. I used to be a high school science teacher, even in the before times. And I was really looking forward to this being my transition year, and I'm gonna get to make such a big impact on these students. And I right around like September, or excuse me, like March, April, May, when they usually start posting teacher positions, I was looking at every school district from like Tacoma School District up to like Chimacum, everywhere in between. And there just weren't any postings. And every day that I would check, my heart just kind of dropped. And then North Kitsap talked about how not only were they not hiring any new teachers for the 2020-2021 school year, but they were also releasing 19 staff members because of the budget fallouts. And I knew that my time had not yet come. And so that was something I was really looking forward to, because I love working with students. I love being in the classroom. I love being connected with science learners. And that was something that I really had to put on the back burner. But I'm hoping 2021, 2022 is going to be my year. So we'll see.
Good luck and congratulations on finishing. You said it was a master's degree, right?
Yep. I am Master Alicia J. Morales.
That is fantastic. There's a movie. It's an old John Hughes movie. She's having a baby, and there's a little dream sequence where he's talking to his grandfather about where he's a little boy and his grandfather is just telling him to go get a master's degree. And what happens to people who don't get a master's degree? And the little boy says they end up working on the loading docks. Well, congratulations on not being on the loading docks anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah, I still am, and probably always will be, unloading ballots to people and those kind of things. So any questions for Alicia, or any more congrats and woot woots, and any more thoughts about getting a teacher job in a year or two?
This might have been an okay year to sit out the whole, I know you're disappointed, but it might have been an okay thing.
Yeah, true. Hindsight being what it is, this is probably would have been a very hard year to enter back into the classroom.
Have you used your new master title to win any arguments yet? Because I used, for the first year I had, and I was like, don't even start because I am a master.
Priya, I can't imagine you being in an argument with anybody, but I digress. So I haven't been able to use it in terms of winning an argument, but I am in a leadership position at my job. I also volunteer and do diversity, equity, and inclusion work within the institution of Fred Hutch, and being in a leadership position, especially with this year. So my master's was in trauma and resiliency, and being able to use that skill set with the people that I kind of project manage in my leadership position, really just being a human and recognizing other people's humanity, and knowing that this is a traumatizing time for many people for a myriad of different reasons, from job loss to income loss to deaths within families, and just being able to use that skill set to be like, you know what, you're a human and you're a wonderful human, and I'm so thankful for you, but please take a breather. And I tell my folks, like, you are the best renewable resource that is out there. People talk about wind and solar and hydrogen and whatever, but people are the biggest renewable resource, but they are only renewable if we take time to renew ourselves. And so that's probably been the best way that I haven't won arguments, but I've definitely used my skill set in a leadership way.
That's a lot more mature.
You're getting lots of congrats on here in the comments section. And Leah says to go for the doctorate, then you'll always be the boss.
Oh,
So.
That's true. That's my next step, because I have some research questions that I think would make a very interesting doctorate.
Oh, wow. We'll be rooting for you.
Thank you.
Glad you're doing the work and not me.
Where are you going to find traumatized people, though? I mean, everything's fine, right? Everything's fine.
I mean, looking in a mirror art, and then just kind of going from there.
So go ahead.
Oh, my mama used to say that nobody comes out of childhood and adolescence unscathed. And we all have some sort of trauma in the past, whether it be from family or some sort of, interaction within our childhood that has formed us in a way that might have been really beneficial in terms of our survival in that particular instance, but has really become a maladaptation in our everyday life. And so I mean, we're all a little messed up. We're all a little kooky, but that's what makes Story Night really interesting, right?
Yeah. So what do they call that? Good scar, bad scar? And the bottom line is there's no such thing as a bad scar, because it's the healing process, and it's the good scar you want to be able to show, and it's the bad scar that you want to protect, right?
We didn't necessarily talk about all of that, but I'm a big proponent of like people's maladaptions or different coping mechanisms doesn't make them bad. That's right. How they were able to survive whatever situation that they experience in childhood, adolescence, adulthood. We all are shaped by our experiences, which is one of the reasons what makes Story Night so amazing,
Yeah.
right? Is being able to share these experiences. And if, you know, we do the best with what we have in that moment in our emotional and mental toolkits. And sometimes the best that we have at that moment, you know, as
Right.
we grow and evolve, doesn't necessarily suit our needs at the later end of things. I could go on. I got a master's in this, so I could talk about this forever, but I don't want to take up all the time.
Well, so it kind of I hesitate to ask the next question is, what have you learned? Because you know, it's a nice segue. But go ahead. What have you
So,
learned this year?
there's been so much that I've learned, but personally speaking, I think the thing that I've learned and have honed in on the most is the importance of being present. And so, being somebody who works in Seattle and commutes, because I live here in Bremerton, like I'm home for maybe 3 hours a night before I go to bed. And when I was living the single life, that wasn't really a big thing. I would come home, I would eat my bowl of cereal, I'd pass out in front of the TV and nobody would be the wiser, right? But when I got married and I inherited this wonderful family of my husband and my stepdaughter, step person, I really they've only known me in the commuting to Seattle and living at home side. So only that 3 hours a day during the week that I'd really be here at the house. But during stand down and having to stay home and not commute, I was around a lot more and got to interact with my step kiddo a lot more. And I always thought that there was something wrong with me as a step parent. Like I always said, I'm just not motherly. That's just not for me. There's, you know, I'm just not cut out for this. And that's why I never had kids, as an excuse of why my step kiddo and I never met and never really understood each other. But spending this time at home and kind of being in each other's face has really allowed us to see the humanity in the other person, and that they're more than just that 3 hours of the day that we experience at dinner time and at bedtime. And I would have to say probably before the pandemic, I didn't have that strong of a relationship with my step kiddo, but because I was forced to stay home and be here, I've now been able to really forge that connection with my step kiddo to the point where I think they feel more comfortable being in my home, and that's invaluable to learn and to have had experience.
Yeah, and they weren't home either during a lot of the time that you were away in Seattle, and so I would just say they probably needed you,
Yeah.
needed you to be there. So, anybody else want to add to this? Okay. Who is somebody in the last year who you believe deserves specific or special acknowledgement?
There are so many, Steve, to be honest. There's our frontline workers, there's our health staff, doctors, nurses, EMTs, police officers. There's so many people. But when I saw this question in the messenger note that you sent, I really wanted to rack my brain and think of a specific person. And the specific person that I jumped to was a scientist that I work with. Her name is Yushin Xu. Yushin has been my mentor for many years. And when as a teacher moving into the science research area, there was a very steep learning curve. And there was a lot of potential for people to put me down. And because I didn't achieve and attain this job in the traditional ways that many people do. But Yushin was so kind and so gentle, and was really, I always commented and complimented her on what an amazing educator she was. She would work alongside with me. She would talk to me as an equal. She really grew me as a scientist. But Yushin is on a visa and is not a US citizen. She's here on a work visa. And during this administration, and particularly in this pandemic, when it was time for her to renew her visa, there was just so many delays and uncertainty with the amount of visas that were being granted for permanent residency. And even in the midst of not knowing if she was going to be deported or if she was going to be allowed to stay and do cancer research, she was still so kind and so gentle. And I know that must have been very, very hard for her and was an exercise in patience. And so of all the people that I could highlight, and there really are so many, I would want to point out Dr. Yushin Shu. You're amazing, and I am so thankful.
We're gonna have to find a way to get that message to the doctor. Yeah.
I'm going to send her this link after we're done recording.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else have a comment there? I'm grateful that you were able to narrow it down to somebody who none of the rest of us obviously would have thought of this person or this kind of person. We don't have, we don't have that shared experience, and so this is where this becomes unique. That this is neat. So when will you know this is over?
Well, just one more comment about Dr. Shu. I feel like there might be a time in everybody's life where we can point to that one person that didn't give up, that really invested their time and energy and made them feel good to the point of being successful. And I think I am very fortunate that I've had many people along the way that have kind of fit that role. And the most recent role filler would be Dr. Shu. But when will I know that this is all over? And so I thought about, okay, so what is this exactly? Mm-hmm. So when do we know when the pandemic is going to be all over? When will we know when this political unrest will be all over? Like, what exactly is this? And I decided to title this as, because I'm a scientist, the scientific misinformation that is out there. So when will people trust in science? When will people become scientifically literate? When will people, be able to participate in our communities in a way that is scientifically informed? And to be honest, I don't know. This lack of scientific literacy and understanding of science and scientific funding, the decreases, has been a huge problem even before this pandemic. And we've gradually kind of seen the sinking of communities and peoples just kind of into scientific mumbo jumbo garbage. I have an aunt who I love very, very dearly, who believes that she will never get the vaccine because of the trackers that Bill Gates has put in there. And I haven't argued with her on that point because it's just, I can't. It is out of my emotional range and capabilities at this point in time. But I think this will be over when we as a society become scientifically literate to a point where we can take care of each other based on scientific evidence and information, and accept it, move forward, and have it not be viewed as an affront to our personal liberties. And I don't know when that will happen, and that's really unfortunate. It makes me sad.
That is a big this.
Yeah.
People, I heard a conversation, I don't know who was saying this, but it was essentially saying hardly any of us do research. We base our conclusions based on who we trust.
Right.
And that, I think, is the biggest challenge to this that you chose. That we don't trust some of the same. We we're not all trusting the right sources, and I know I'm guilty of it. So I'm not, not trying to point outwards there, but I hope you're right. I hope to see that day too. Anybody else got anything to add on that particular point? That's a big one.
Yes.
Well, I would actually like to add on that point a little bit, and I was probably going to touch on this myself anyway, but just to what she was saying and what you were just saying, I work in food service, so I work in an environment where I should say I'm privileged enough to hear all walks of people, and it constantly amazes me the different types of opinions and the I won't but I wills that every single customer has, because we all think and react differently to this entire thing. So I mean, and I agree that her point is valid, and I mean, it's hard. I mean, we are a world population to get everybody to want to think on one cycle, on the same cycle. But I hear it every day. I hear the differences of I'm not going to get the vaccine because of this, or I'm going to get the vaccine because of this, and it's just everybody is on their own wavelength. It's just what it is. It's really interesting to see. You see it more now than you ever did.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to see people's differences of opinions now than it was prior to the pandemic.
I 100% agree with you, Doug. And I would also like to say that the onus is not on the public at large. The onus is on the scientific community as well. As scientists, in order for us to publish, and I'm guilty of this too. I'm not a classically trained scientist, but I have adopted those means of working within those spaces so that when I move in spaces that aren't scientific in nature, I come out sounding like a pompous ass.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. I use a lot of jargon because that's how science moves. But when I'm a little hayseed from Oklahoma. Like I'm not, I'm not Dr. Moreau doing some sort of like weird scientific experiments off on some distant island. Like I'm a real person. And I think when people know me as a real person and can talk to me as a real person, I'm trustworthy. But when I talk to people as a scientist, in the mode of publication, if you will, because it's so just out of the realm of everyday folks, it makes me seem super untrustworthy. And I get that as a person who deals in scientific communication. Like I understand that I'm also guilty of that. So the scientific community also has some work to do as well. And I hope that's another thing that we see change and evolve out of this pandemic. We see a lot of people like Dr. Fauci and there's a scientist in Italy, his name kind of is faltering me at the moment, but they're on Twitter and they're like, look, y'all, this is what we need in order to be, to move past this. And people can digest that. And that feels good to have somebody be like, I know this situation sucks. I'm there in it with you. And here's what we need in order to get out of it. And let me explain it to you in terms that everybody can understand and not just this elitist, doctorate view. So I think everybody in society has some evolving to do, from the people that you interact with, Doug, to the people that I work with. There is a reckoning that needs to happen. And I think this pandemic has really highlighted the need for it.
I also think it's true that the arguments may continue, but they'll be on different things. Some of the things that we're arguing about now will become non-controversial in the future. Though I don't know how much people argued about a polio vaccine, but I don't know how many people I've ever met who actually had polio, and it's because they eradicated it, and then now that becomes a controversy again. So I guess controversies can re-arise, but I think we do move on, and hopefully we do so in a way that serves the best interests of all of us, because it can be dangerous out there. So Anybody else? All right. Doug, are you ready? Kim, are you okay that I'm saving you for last? Okay. I do want to read a couple of comments. Leah said, I'm grateful to the ARC programs. They save so many of us in so many ways. I love all their classes. Yeah, the ARC, those folks do great work. So thanks for talking them up. Kim, can you raise your mug? Nessa Goldman wanted to throw special props out for the mug. So thank you for chiming in, Nessa. I hope things went well tonight for you guys. The Out Loud Story Slam was tonight, but it was on the radio. And I didn't talk about it because it was going to conflict with ours. So I don't think anybody's offended by that. But I imagine it's still, you could probably still listen to it. So Nessa, if you want to let us know whether that's still possible in the comments, that would be great. And then Susan Brooks says, Alan Alda is working on a project where he is helping scientists learn to be more accessible to regular people. Thank you, Alan Alda, because I don't understand what you're talking about, probably, at least if you're trying to tell me complex things. I'm just not that bright. Now, having been a reporter, I'm good at asking questions until I understand it, and I can annoy people. But that was my job back then. So, all right, Doug, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Something you had planned on that you had to give up this in 2020.
I mean, there were, I guess, kind of lots of little things. There wasn't too much that I planned on that I had to give up. Like there was like a come to me moment where I was like, this is the year I'm going to Disney, and that went out the door. Let's see. I had actually started on giving up soda back in about late February, early March. I decided that I needed to cut it out of my diet and see where it went. But I'm also not a smoker or an avid drinker or anything like that. So as you can imagine, with the pandemic hit and we all got locked down, I mean, I'm drinking. So, so that didn't really work out as planned either. But honestly, the biggest thing that I had to give up, I actually haven't had to give up yet, but I'm going to have to. I turned 40 in January, and I had a plan, a birthday party plan for myself turning 40. Kind of a blowout, not a big one, but definitely not a sit at home and light my own candle and drink my own beer 40th birthday party. I plan on going out with friends and doing karaoke out at Round One Entertainment at South Center Mall. It's if you've never been, it's awesome, but it's a bowling center, billiard hall, and you can rent private karaoke rooms there. So I had planned this big 40th blowout, which obviously is a month away. So I highly doubt that is going to work out the way I want it to work out. So that is definitely something that I had to, that because of this, I'm going to have to give up. So
Is postponing
we'll,
it?
we'll sing to you at Story Night in January, whether you like it or not.
Well, I'm sure I won't like it, but I'll appreciate it.
Yeah,
okay. It's nice to see you again, Kim, by the way.
There's got to be a way to make this happen. And I'm not gonna plan anything now, obviously. But I don't have to go, but I think that's a good plan. I think that's a good fun, and I hope you find something that can replace that.
I mean, I do kind of like once this opens back up again, I mean, I will get back out there and do so. Because that's been the hardest part for me for 2020. I guess what I've had to give up is most of my de-stressors. When I've had a long stressful week, that's what I've done. I go out, I do karaoke, and I haven't had access to that. The other part of the party blowout is like most of the people that I know, like the people I was close with and hung out with regularly, were people I met through a relationship I am no longer in. Yeah. So like those people wouldn't even be on the invite list anymore because the pandemic kind of like, so there's this kind of what happens.
Well, I'm pretty
No.
sure no party means no birthday means you don't have to turn that age
40.
this
Yeah.
year. You get to do it the next time, right? I mean, no party,
I
no
will-
birthday.
I will. Okay, if that's what it takes to stay 39 forever, we can have a pandemic. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't have a pandemic every year.
I'm going to adopt that philosophy. That's my call. Yeah, that's my plan.
I think
Yeah.
we have an hour before the next story night to just really celebrate. Whenever we get to meet in person, let's meet at the Cloverleaf. There's already a sound, implementation. And Doug, you just sing your heart out, and I will be there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we'll make this happen.
All
We'll be
right.
back. We'll be back. Okay, so what's something you've learned this year?
Honestly, I mean, if it wasn't already, noticeable, my vision is far from 2020, and I've definitely learned in this year that hindsight, I really could have used some 2020 hindsight this year. A lot has happened where it's like things that I would not have thought would happen have happened this year. Like I could not have seen them coming. And I honestly couldn't sit here and tell you that if it wasn't for the pandemic, that maybe they wouldn't have happened. Like I said, I lost a relationship that I was in. I was in a really good relationship. The pandemic and the lockdown affected us both in different ways, to where we ended up going our separate ways. And I learned all these lots of little things that I don't know if I would have learned them had it not been for the pandemic. But there are these little things that I guess I'm grateful that I did learn. I kind of wish I had seen them coming though.
Mm.
So the biggest thing that I have learned this year is, I mean, some things you definitely cannot see coming, no matter how good your vision is. So that's probably the biggest thing I learned this year.
Yeah, I would guess a lot of relationships have changed.
Yeah. So.
Some for the better. So anybody this year that you think deserves specific acknowledgement?
I know we're putting a lot of love out there for our first responders and all them, and they deserve it. I mean, definitely. Personally, I don't know. I don't think that I can narrow it down to one person, but I can narrow it down. And this is a little self-serving, but like I said, I work in the fast food industry, and we learned real quick this year, just how essential that we are. And I don't know how many of them are actually listening to this. I tell them about it every month, but if I could narrow it down to one person, I would definitely say it's my team, my work team, the team I work with. We I don't know why, but it's like the people of Port Orchard forgot that there were 4 other Subways in Port Orchard, and I am the only one that is apparently open, even though that's not true. Because while everybody else's sales have dwindled, my store has been busy through almost this entire thing, and it's I mean, just last week we were making summer sales, so like. So I have to say that the people that specifically my team, but the people that I work with, the people in my company, really deserve a really big shout out, because a lot of people don't realize, like, even though we're clean as can be anyway. That's our job. We work in food. Our job is to stay clean. Like, our job is to wash our hands. Our job is to keep you guys safe. But with the pandemic, just in the past 6 months, 9 months alone, we've been adopting to new policy after new policy after new policy, and it's not as like, I've been doing the job for 8 years, and this, I can tell you right now, this is, even for me, it's been one crazy difficult, like, one adaptation after another. It has not been easy on us food workers to be out there and like working during this. So give a big shout out to them.
Thank you. Yeah, and
Thank
thank
you.
them for me.
I will.
I have taken advantage of drive-throughs more than walk-ins. Your store's in the Walmart, right?
No, see that I'm actually running the one over on Sedgwick by Albertsons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, So we've been, like I said, we slowed down for the
Wow.
first couple of weeks of it, but since then we have not really slowed down. My sales are either on par with last year or bigger than last year. So
Oh, that's great. Well, that's the one closest to me. I'm gonna make you busier.
that's okay.
So, how will you know this is over?
Oh man, I think sounds a little cheesy, but I think I'll know this is over when the normalcy settles back in, and it's literally the normalcy with everything. Everything that I do is, and I'm sure with everybody, but everything that we do and everything that I do is so different these days. Like I was a 40-hour a week single dad before the pandemic. I still am, but it's different now. You know, my kids are at home doing school, and you know, there's no like before I could go to work 6 to 2 and not really miss any time with my kids because they're in school, you know. But now I go to work 6 to 2, and their mother, who's another person I really need to thank through all of this, you know, because she's the one putting up with the school with them. But they go to their mothers more often than they're with me now. Because when I work 6 to 2, they have to have somewhere to go because they still have to go to school. So it's like I'm losing time with them, even though I'm not really. I mean, I still would have worked 6 to 2, but they would have been in school, you know.
Right.
So when that kind of thing returns to normal, even work, I haven't slowed down, but it's different. Like I miss my customers being able to sit in my store. I miss the bustle of it all. You know, you don't realize, you know, until it's gone, the amount of conversations you can take in as a food service worker, just standing behind the counter and like listening to people sit down in your restaurant and talk about their day-to-days or the weather and things like that. It's just things that don't happen right now. So when all that returns to normal and I have customers I can interact with and share stories with, and you know, things like that, that's when I'll know this is over.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the gathering that happens at story night and those kind of things. And Chris touched on it, you know, the hearing a glass and that. But there is something magic, even if we're not there. If you go with one other person, you're not really just there with one other person. There's something magical about everybody else in the room that is contributing to that. Otherwise, I would feel kind of put on the spot if I was the only person in the restaurant, and that's kind of how it feels probably a little bit right now. But yeah, thank you for your work. And honestly, I haven't taken any workers in your situation and in grocery stores and places like that we can't. I mean, I guess we could close down all the restaurants and that, but we don't want to. And
Right.
you know, aside from the food, you've kind of touched on how you serve a valuable purpose. Anybody else have anything to add to that? I know I'm doing a lot of the talking, but.
Well, Doug, I think if we're going to do an hour of pre-story night karaoke, you should have to bring us a 6-foot sub. Just saying. Seems fair.
It seems fun fact. They are my least favorite party platter to serve, but I would do it.
Right on.
Yeah, this party's for you, dude. So.
All right.
I just had one question. So I haven't been able to tune in to many of the virtual story nights, but I remember one of the last stories that Doug, you told in person, you had touched upon some uncertainty that was coming in the next months. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Without story night, I probably wouldn't have known about Doug Avery, but in the months that preceded that particular story night, I thought about you often, and I wondered if you were okay and if things had worked out for you. Can you give us just it sounds like you're working. Can you give us a quick update with whatever you feel comfortable with?
Oh yeah, sure. No, so during that story night, this is ironic because this was, you know, just pre-pandemic, you know, what had happened was my lease in my apartment complex had come up, and they had raised the rent on me, which I was already kind of like struggling to afford. And part of it was my fault. You know, my bills were a little higher than they probably could be at this point in time. But so I was already struggling to afford it. And they raised the rent a little bit out of my pay grade. And they so where I live, you have to make 3 times the rent to qualify. And with where they raised the new rent too, I didn't quite make that. So I was like scrambling to, you know, figure out what I was going to do. I don't have family out here. I have an uncle. So there's not a lot of people I can turn to. And plus I have my kids, you know. So the big uncertainty was whether or not I was going to find a way to stay out here or unfortunately suck it up and move back to Connecticut. That's where all my family lives. In some weird way, it helped. It ended up helping. My job, pre-pandemic, decided that they would allow us to start collecting credit card tips, which is something that they had not previously allowed before. And credit card tips go into your paycheck and count as income. So I was able to just barely put myself over that threshold to make the 3 times income. So I still can barely afford the rent, and I'm going to be in the same boat again in January. It's going to go up again. But I feel sort of confident that I'm in a good place now. And I asked for a raise a couple months ago. We'll see what happens. So I'm still here in the same complex, and it still barely affording the rent, but I am still here. So, and then just to add, the pandemic itself, like my biggest problem has been with the pandemic, even though we've been busy, you know, my hours have been a little bit sustainable a lot of people have lost hours, and I feel for them. The biggest thing that I have is that I work in the industry, even pre-pandemic, where it's like, we don't call out because we're the people who need the job, you know, so we don't call out, we don't miss hours. But now with everything going on, if we even have the slightest symptom and we report it, like if we have a sore throat and we report it, we have to take a minimum of 48 hours off before we can return to work. You have to go 48 hours symptom free before we can return to work. It's been a huge dent in a lot of our hours, a lot of our paychecks, just having to take that extra precaution, you know, and I get it, it's for the safety of everybody. So I was also in 2 car accidents this year. I haven't been in a car accident in 25 years. So, but yeah, my 2020 vision has been really, but I can say that I don't know if I can say this, but I don't want to take too long. I took a 3-week vacation in July for some mental health reasons, and I drove across country all the way back home to Connecticut. And it was partly to see if I felt like I belonged more there or more here in Washington. And I can say that I couldn't definitively come up with where I needed to be, but I could definitively come up with at least I have a home considered. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that update. I'm glad to hear that the current situation that I heard about last story night has kind of resolved. I'm glad that you have found some community here, because I mean, I might just be an audience member, but listening to you for months, for a day every month, like I don't want to be weird about it, but like I care about you. And so I am glad that you have that you feel at home here, and I hope that it feels good for you to know that somebody you might have had a very casual interaction with over a course of months in 2019 cared very much about you and about the outcome of your particular story.
Well, I appreciate that, and I can say that that's part of what I like about story night is I never have a disappointed night at story night with anybody who tells a story or even afterwards. We're always talking to each other afterwards, you know, and it's just it's a big sense of community there. It's one of the things that drew me to it in the first place. My very first story night, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And and that's what I love about going to story night. I love that sense of community. It's not just about the stories; it's that sense of community and family afterwards. So, thank you for that, Steve.
We got a comment from Jeff Allen. Doug, I suspect I speak for everyone here when I say that the positive vibe machine is turned to 11 and pointed at you.
Well, thank you.
So, Kim, are you
Yepper.
you ready?
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
All right, so let's go right into it. Something that you had to give up, that you had planned this year, that you had to give up.
So there's this deep sea research and exploration group called Ocean Exploration Trust, and their ship is called the EV Nautilus. If any of you a couple of years ago saw that video of like 1,000 octopuses all together on the ocean floor, that was them. And it's a foundation run by Bob Ballard, who's the guy who discovered the Titanic with that underwater robot. And about 2 years ago, I found out that just people who wanted to could apply to go on the boat and volunteer. And so I was like, hot dog, I want to go on that boat. Like, I'm not a boat person. And like, I once almost barfed my whole guts out on the Victoria Ferry, but I was like, this boat thing is pretty freaking awesome. And so at the end of 2019, I was like obsessed with applying. The application process was super long and I had to interview on Zoom and I had to write all this stuff. And I was just like totally obsessed with getting to go on this boat. And at the end of January this year, I got an email that said, congratulations, you've been selected to go on this boat. And my job was supposed to be science communication fellow. And that meant when they were doing the deep dives with the robot, I would be sitting there live on YouTube like this. But instead of telling stories, I would have been communicating with the public to ask questions live of the scientists and engineers and ROV pilots that were running the dive. And then when I wasn't doing that, I would be doing live streams with classrooms all around the world, classrooms and other audiences. And so that was my job. And I was over the moon excited that I got picked to go. And it included a week of training in March in Rhode Island. And then my mission that I was scheduled to be on was 3 weeks in July off the coast of Vancouver Island, doing deep sea dives down in hydrothermal vents that are out there. And so I was just like stoked. And, the training didn't happen in March. It was moved to online and it was shortened. And then they kept saying, well, it's delayed. And then it got delayed again. And then it got delayed again. And then it got delayed again. And then they finally said, well, we're going to run shortened missions this year, but it's only with like skeleton crew and no science communication fellows get to go. And so that was something that, I've been thinking about it for a long time. The application process was super long. But the good news is that everybody who got selected for this year, if we still want to go next year, we're automatically in. And so look for me in the 2021 dive season. I will be somewhere in the world on a boat, probably puking a lot, but also doing something that Alicia talked about, which is like communicating science to an audience that could include anything from like a kindergarten classroom. I really want to do I could come to a story night live from the ship and you could ask questions live of the scientists. We could do something like that. I'd love to do a nerd night with like a pub where we're there live on a screen from wherever the boat is. But I was super sad it was not this year, but I'm hopeful that it will be next year.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Would anybody here not think that was just be the most awesome thing in the world to do?
That sounds like the coolest thing that I could ever imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you go on YouTube and you look up EV Nautilus, you'll see some of the stuff that they did this year with their crew. Like they discovered a fossilized whale off the coast of California. A fossil, like a giant fossil of a dead whale. Like,
wow.
Who even does that? So, yeah, that's my thing that I'm super sad that I missed out on.
Well, I think this is a huge congratulations to you for even getting selected for that. Like I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it is postponed, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
something that's going to happen, or
Yes.
probably going to happen.
I mean, who knows what the world's gonna, their dive season is from the end of June till like the end of October. So hopefully sometime next year between June and October, like the world like is okay enough for me to go on a boat.
Yeah, and there are parts of the world that are in pretty good shape right now. They don't want us coming over there very much. But,
Yeah,
but-
that's the other part of the problem.
all right. Something you learned this year.
All right, so I have a slightly longer answer to this. And before I start, I just want to say, everybody, like, you see me, right? Like, I'm fine, right? You see me, I'm fine. I'm talking to you, I'm here, I'm fine. So before I start, I just wanted to say that. So there you go. So first, I learned that I'm better at quarantine than most people. Like, for the first few months of the pandemic, like, everybody was, kvetching about how horrible it was. And I was like, I don't know, I got my garden, I got my little dog, I can work, I exercised every day. I was like sleeping 9 hours a night. It was fine. Like, the first few months of quarantine, it was way easier than Peace Corps, let me tell you. Like, in Peace Corps, I didn't have running water, electricity, refrigeration, Netflix, grocery delivery. Like, I didn't have any of those things when I was in the Peace Corps. So like, the first part of quarantine, I learned like I really am an introvert, and that was kind of fine with me. And then in mid-August, I learned that doing all the right things to be safe from the pandemic wasn't enough to save me from something I didn't even know to be scared about. So I learned that if you call 911 and you sound too calm, that the dispatcher might not believe that a stranger is trying to run you over with their car repeatedly and threatening to kill you in a specific and gruesome manner. And if the dispatcher doesn't believe you, if they think that you sound too calm, then they won't prioritize your call with the police. And so the police don't know that you're hiding behind a tree in your neighbor's yard while this person drives around the neighborhood trying to run you over yet again. And so the police, they don't know to come and save you. I learned that my brain has levels of attention and memory that can be activated by sheer terror. Like, there's gears up there, friends, that you don't even know you have. And so every time the perp did a U-turn to try to run me over again, it was like when you're at the eye doctor and they click the lenses and everything gets sharper and sharper. And my brain just like was paying attention to every detail in a way that was very unusual. I've never experienced anything like that before. I learned that there are friends who, when 911 puts you on hold for the third time, and so you end up hanging up with 911 and calling your friend and saying, don't say anything, just get in your car and come save me. They come. They just drop whatever they're doing and they come and they save you. And then there's like a person in the world who has saved your life. That is something that is a pretty big deal. I learned that when the police finally do get the right information, they can really take care of business. They do not mess around. And they did take care of business in my case. And a few hours later, the perp was in custody, and I got to know that and feel safe. And that was cool. So thank you, Bremerton Police Department. You are my friends. I think that the police learned that they should not say, please write as detailed a statement as possible to a former engineer. Like, I think that learning is firmly, they were not ready for the statement that I delivered to them. I think they are probably using it as a doorstop somewhere. After that day, I started to learn a whole lot about the criminal justice system. And I don't really think I want to go into that because we might have to have like a whole story night that's just for the things that I've learned about the criminal justice system, emphasis on the air quotes, and who it works for and who it doesn't work for. And don't really think I want to go into that too much because I'll start cursing a lot. And I would rather just keep it about what I learned about me. But the long story short, I learned that a person can repeatedly try to murder a stranger in broad daylight and plead to lesser charges and serve 99 days in jail and then be out, like in our community right now, this minute. So that's a thing that I learned that I kind of wish I didn't know. I learned that trauma is a complete son of a bitch, and there's like waves and stages, and all of that attention and focus that went into the moments when someone was trying to kill me, it was like it depleted my reserves of attention and focus for the next month. Like it just was gone. My brain could not brain anymore. Like I just would wander around my house, and every hour or so I would just fall down to the ground, and I'd be like, wherever I happen to be, maybe in the yard, in the living room, I would just flop to the ground. And then I would be on the ground for a while until I got back up, and then yeah, that was not a fun few days. Then there was a whole lot of like attempted sense making about something that truly made no sense. Like there was no sense to be had here. It's a totally random stranger thing that just happened to be me. And you just can't make sense of that. But our brains are sense making machines, right? We try to make things make sense. And so my brain struggled with that for a while. Then I went through the gourmet ice cream stage. It's probably the most expensive stage, even more expensive than counseling. Like that gourmet ice cream, it can really start adding up over time. And then there was a week when I finally was like starting to be okay, and I would be working or doing whatever, and I'd forget about it, and then my body would just snap back to attention. Like my brain would remember, my body would go into fight or flight mode all at once. And that happened like every half hour or so, all day, every day. And that's a really shitty stage. To be honest, probably my least favorite stage about learning about trauma. But I did learn that it does get easier with help, counseling, and support from friends. Like it does get easier. It never gets easy, but it does get easier. And so in the end, I'd have to say, what did I learn? I learned there's worse things in quarantine. I know that some people can't wait for quarantine to be over so they can be out in the world and move freely among humans and encounter all manner of strangers and possibilities and things. But I learned that I am not one of those people.
The only word that comes to mind is so cliche, and it's wow. You and I didn't know the details of this story. You had told me a little bit before, and you had mentioned before that there had been some trauma, and I thought I would be prying. And so one of the questions I have is, when somebody mentions that there's trauma, is it okay to ask what that's about?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just as someone who, if they didn't want you to ask, they probably wouldn't say, or if they weren't comfortable with you asking. But like, the other thing is with me, like everybody's traumatized right now. There's this shared trauma that we all have, like with quarantine and COVID, and there's the shared trauma of politics, and there's these things that we all share, but then we all have our own like private traumas as well, you know, whether it's with our family or our pets or our job or our health, you know, like people who've had health problems during this time that aren't COVID, like that's super traumatizing too, because now you have to go to the doctor. And so I think that that's what's so crazy about all this, is that there's this collective trauma that we all have, but then there's these individual things which are just like, life is like a box of chocolates, man. You just never know which one you're going to get.
Well, and one of the things that we did talk about was how random this was. And you talked about your brain trying to make sense of this. Most times violence happens between people who know each other. And this was just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I mean, do you know any idea why this happened? Why?
Well, I mean, there were probably mental health issues. Also, substances were definitely involved. Various substances, more than just one. I was a woman walking alone. I mean, if you want to talk about why this happened, like that's, that's part of the equation is when you're a woman, you're walking alone. Doesn't matter if it's broad daylight in your little neighborhood. But the other thing is that this person was a COVID denier and was apparently driving around yelling that. And when they yelled it at me, I didn't respond or react because like I just try to back away from, and I was walking and he was in a car and he drove by and yelled and I didn't acknowledge or agree or disagree. And I think toxic masculinity is a real thing. And when you can't get a rise out of someone, you can't get a reaction at all, that can be very enraging. And so there was no reason, but like those were the contributing factors.
Yeah, and please, anybody else jump in here. And that is the hard thing. I mean, to try to make sense. Alicia, did you want to chime in? I only ask you because your mic is unmuted. But
yeah, my initial like gut reaction. So like my language of love is like touch, right? And so when you're telling your story, and I see the heart and just the recounting of all of the I just want to scoop you up and hug you, and I know that's weird, but like, oh my God, like my heart is just broken, and I'm so sorry that you had to endure that. And it sounds like a totally random encounter, and the luck of the draw that day just was not in your favor. And I can't express in the right amount of words to say that, like, of all the people in all of the world that this could have happened to, first of all, it should not have happened at all, but you should not have been the target of that particular person. I don't know the right way to put that into words, but I don't know. My heart just breaks. I'm so sorry, Kim. I'm so thrilled and happy that you're still here with us and still alive, still kicking, still doing like the Kim Weaver type of thing. And I think above all else, I'm so glad that this particular instance did not dim the Kim Weaver spirit.
Oh, there was a severe dimming. I mean, this was August, right? Like I'm just now finally getting back to my fighting form, which is why y'all haven't seen me, on here. But, I'm actually at the place where if it had to happen, and I'm not saying I volunteer as tribute or anything, but I am hyper vigilant. I knew this guy was trouble from the moment I heard him hit the speed bump coming up fast behind me. I'm young, I'm fit. Like I was able to save myself and my dog, like get us out of the way multiple times as, like it was happening. Not everybody would have been able to do that. Like this, if this had to happen, it had the best possible outcome. He was apprehended. I gave great details and license plate and all the things that the police needed. I wasn't hurt. My dog wasn't hurt. Nobody was hurt. I'm glad that it didn't end up someone who couldn't get out of the way, because then there would be an unsolved murder a block from my house, right? Like that would have been a much, much worse outcome. So I definitely would not have signed up for this, but if it had to happen, it had the best possible outcome.
The whole thing just upsets my tummy. Like
that's why I told you at the beginning, I'm here. You see me, I'm fine, right? Like you see me, I'm here, I'm fine. So,
well,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, fine now. I'm glad you're physically, like at the moment of that day, physically okay. But just to know kind of the healing process. And thank you for sharing that part of the process and how it's not just like I'm physically okay, and then in August and now December everything is okay, but like sharing that process of how it was incremental and like taking one step forward and taking a step back and
then falling to the ground and then getting
right.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying that it's all over and that it's all, in the past and behind me or anything, but like it's a process that a lot of different people have supported too. Like there's victim support services in Kitsap County. If you're the victim of a violent crime that you can get for free, they're amazing. Bremerton Police was super awesome and supportive. My friends. So.
Yeah, but Kim, you're an effing warrior. Like, for real. Like, in story time or story night, you talk about all of these particular times when you've encountered so many situations, I'll just put it that way, and during your time in the Peace Corps, but like you're a warrior. And I don't know if you recognize that within yourself, but I really hope you do, because like you're a fucking hurricane and like a force to be reckoned with. And I really hope you know that.
Thanks, buddy. I don't know what else to do just other than keep keeping on, like that's all any of us can do, right?
But that's what makes you a force to be reckoned with, right? Is that determination of self to like rise above that moment, determination of community to like make your community a safer place and proceed with the criminal justice system. Like there were so many places where anybody could have been like, this is too much for me to handle. I'm just going to drop it here. I'm going to leave it here. I'm not going to press charges. I'm going to wallow in this particular moment. But like, that's not what you did. And I really hope that you recognize like what a fucking badass. I know. Sorry, Steve, I'm dropping the F-bomb. Excuse me. I just really hope you recognize what a warrior that you are.
Thanks. And, all my story night practice really did come in handy when it came time to make my victim statement in court. Like the victim advocate was like, are you okay talking in front of people? Like, and I'm like, I think I can do it. Right. Like this might not be the friendly crowd I'm used to at story night, but I got this. So the practice was useful.
Yeah, I'm reminded of your story. Something when Alicia was talking, I'm reminded of the story about being in the shopping area in Africa, and Grandmama. I don't remember the quote, and help me. And I think I see you as the grandmama in a lot of situations. So. And it's, in a way, it's hard to hear the story because there was the real possibility that you would not be here. And that's a tough, so this is the trauma we get to live with now, to know that, and
caring is caring.
You're fine. You're fine. But yeah, that's, I'm always glad you're here. I think tonight, there's a special reason, and a lot of folks are, there have been a lot of expressions of support here. I wanted to call out one that Priya posted on here. It's from Robin Carson, and trauma on top of trauma. I'm so relieved that you sound like you're starting to heal. You are not alone, and so thanks for not being alone tonight. Even though you're at home by yourself with your dog.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. You want to answer the other questions?
Sure.
Doug, I see your mic is unmuted. Did you have a comment?
I guess I just had a couple, and I don't want to take anything away from Kim's story, because wow, I mean, one, not too surprised when you said that, when somebody's too calm, 911 has a hard time taking it seriously. When I was a kid, I went through a similar situation where 911 did not believe the call that I had made, because I had approached a van that I thought looked like my uncle was in, and it turned out to be a couple of guys that I did not recognize. And when I walked away, they kept following me. So when I called 911, I guess they'd gotten a series of prank calls that week and were like not exactly inclined to believe me. And then the other thing that did not surprise me, and I know you didn't want to get into details of it, and I don't want to make anybody on Story Night think any less of me, but from the other side of the room, it did not surprise me when you had said that, basically through gamemanship, he was able to get a reduced sentence, because when in my younger, not so mature awesomeness that you see now, I had done a couple of things I should not have done, non-violent things, but still that landed me in the system, and I pretty much was able to game the system for about 2 years, and pretty much what was handed to me was a lot lighter than probably could have been. So it did not surprise me to hear that you said that. Two different circumstances. I mean, violence and non-violence. But having been through the system and in the system, and it doesn't surprise me. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that and then see it for yourself firsthand.
Yep, it was lots of learning there. Stay tuned for future stories about the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't move away. Because when we go back and have an audience, we're going to be back to our normal format. You're going to have your 5 minutes or maybe longer. And I like the idea of long stories too. So long form stories, long stories, longer than we've ever seen on Story Night, on purpose anyway. We had somebody go 22 minutes once, but that was with the 5 minute,
Hopefully that wasn't me.
No, and it didn't feel like 22 minutes. It was definitely felt long, but it was, that was a record. And but I would give up 20 minutes if you've got a well-crafted story, and if people knew what they were in for. I think it's really good. This is what comedians do, is they tell really long stories. And people like Brene Brown, they what is it? A story is a data with a heart or a heartbeat or something like that. So, okay. Somebody this year who deserves special acknowledgement.
So, I mean, besides from the friend who saved my life, who also happens to be a teacher, like holding it down right now. So that's definitely one person who, I might not be here without. But I just really want to say, like, everybody who is alive and upright and getting anything done, I changed my to-do list. I don't write to-do on the top of my list anymore. I write ta-da, because friends, if you're checking one thing off your list, you are a goddamn magician. And when you check something off your list, you should say ta-da, and like everyone around should applaud. I have not yet taught my dog how to applaud yet, but I just think anybody who's managing to get stuff done right now, through whatever's going on collectively, also whatever going on personally, you deserve acknowledgement. I don't maybe know everything that everybody's going through, but I know it's a lot. And I listened to this podcast called Freakonomics, and they recently started having a new sign off. Like at the end, they say, take care of yourself. And if you can, take care of someone else too. And like, that is what it's about, right? Like during this time, I have taken care of people. I have had people taking care of me, and I've done my best to take care of myself. And so everybody out there, if you're taking care of yourself, I see you, I acknowledge you. And if you're taking care of someone else too, like, that's awesome. So that is my specific acknowledgement.
And how will you know this is over?
Well, my work has completely changed. So when I go back to working with teachers in person, that will be a big indicator. But really the only big public gathering that anyone was ever going to see me at was Story Night. I don't go out. I'm actually an introvert in real life. I know people who only know me through Story Night might not get that, but like, I am a big introvert, and Story Night is my only big public thing. So I guess I'll know that this is over when I see you all at the Cloverleaf, and I will see you then.
Well, thank you. I don't know if we do the waves. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to really briefly share something that I I'm going to answer the questions quickly. Something I had to give up was a high school reunion. Doug, you're going to be celebrating your 40th birthday. I'm going to be celebrating 40 years out of high school. It's down in LA. I was going to get to go see the Dodgers in San Diego. I was on the verge of buying airplane tickets, and that I gave it up, and I hardly ever thought about it again. We had to give up. Sorry, my dog's here. That isn't that big a deal. Something that I didn't plan, that I didn't get to do, was say goodbye to my friend when he died, and that's what I'm going to remember from this year. And there are so many people who are going to be able to say the same thing, or are going to have to say the same thing. That is what's hard for me. I got to say goodbye to my parents when they died, and it was, I don't know why it was valuable. It just was. And when my friend, and I talked about my friend last month, so I don't need to go into that whole thing, but I was planning, I was making plans or considering whether to go. And because I couldn't see him, I didn't end up going. He lives in another state. And so that's something about this year. Something I learned this year was to treat some of my passions like a job. I read a book called The War of Art. It's by this guy, if you can see that, Stephen Pressfield is his name. I think he wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. And it's a book about being creative and that. And so because I'm home all the time and something I've always struggled with. And if you were a fan of the podcast, if you were a fan, you suffered this, and I haven't gone back to that. But part of it was because there are reasons I didn't make it regular enough, and hopefully we'll be getting back to that. And I've got some other things in the works that I'll go into. People who, I'm going to talk about a group of people who deserve special acknowledgement. As most of you, or if you've watched this before, I work in elections, and voters were great for the most part. But I have 7 fantastic coworkers, and we have great management at where I am. But the people I want to call it the most are the ones who come in temporarily. Because first of all, it was a hard environment. It was a difficult election anyway. It was working in unusual circumstances. We had to make a lot of adjustments because of the pandemic, and a lot of these people are retirees. And I want to acknowledge the ones who came to work and the ones who didn't, because some people chose to take care of themselves by not doing that work this time. And I think it's just, I just think these are probably, they fit the profile. Some of them fit the profile of some being among the most vulnerable, and they came and did their jobs. And that I'm aware of, nobody got sick because they all wore their masks. They stayed apart from each other. They took it seriously. And part of the reason, I'm sure some of them took it seriously because we were taking it seriously. And some of them were not allowed to stay after a while because they weren't taking it seriously, or because they couldn't remember to do this, to take it seriously. And the fact that nobody got sick is partly because of the precautions we took, but it's also because we got lucky, and because they were diligent about it, and because we got lucky. I just think that all the precautions you take, you just don't know. And people did, and they came out of it okay. And I think it's a testament to some of the things that the scientists tell us to do. So thank you to scientists. Scientists deserve acknowledged too. So when will I know it's over? When I get to see all of you on stage, and it doesn't occur to me that we weren't able to do this. And I'm committed to coming back, to bringing Story Night back, and I hope we can. I have no idea whether, I have a pretty good idea that we'll be able to go back to the Cloverleaf, but who knows? I mean, things may change for them. It's a business. I've been relying on them. It's been a great place. We'll find a way to make this happen, even if that goes away. And that's when I'll know that this situation that we're in right now is over. And sometimes they say, you don't know how much you miss something until it's gone. But then you realize how much you miss something when it goes away and then it comes back. And so I look forward to seeing you all in person. And we've had a good audience tonight. We've had right now we have 15 people, and that's the lowest I've seen it tonight. And that's, I think for an online event, I think that's doing pretty well. So thank you to all of you who showed up. Next month, I can't remember the date. I believe we're back on the first Thursday of the month. I don't think there should be no NFL games, so we won't be, and who cares about the Seahawks anymore anyway, right? And the theme is Now What? And this is, again, it's kind of a continuation of this. I don't know what the format will be, but I really appreciate the four of you who stepped up tonight to be willing to assist us in this. And I want to ask Jose and Priya if they have anything else that they want to add before I do one final thing, and then we'll go.
Well, I just want to share, maybe answering the second question, like what thing I have learned this year. Maybe this could be a joke, but I learned how to tie tire chains. I went driving, and it was my first time on the snow. I went to the mountains, and I have never had that experience coming from the Caribbean. So it was my first time doing tire chains. It's kind of freezy, and all the tires go this way, and then you don't know what to do. But I nailed it. So I just wanted to share that. So it was a good experience of that time. Just what.
Yeah, I've had to use chains to get out of a driveway at a house I lived in anymore. So what I learned from that experience was to don't live on a house with a steep driveway. So I want to read one more thing before we go. Thank you to Kitsap Regional Library. We wouldn't be here were it not for you. And actually, Alicia, can you share something with us?
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to kind of just say a word very quickly. I haven't been participating in a lot of the story nights just because I haven't felt like I've had the time. But I wanted to just thank everyone that's participated online and everybody on the Zoom call. Today I've had kind of Zoom meeting overload, and the hour before this meeting, I was like, I can't look at any more screens. Oh, I'm just dreading being on another Zoom call. But I can't tell you how restorative that this has felt to me. And I've missed you all. And I mean, I might just be a nameless person or somebody that you see on stage occasionally at story night. But I can honestly tell you right now that I have sincerely missed you all. I'm so glad to see that you are doing well and that you're still here with us, and that you are sharing your stories, and that you are with me in the sense that we're waiting for this pandemic to be over in order to be a community again. I can't tell you how good that feels.
Thank you, Alicia. This will remain on YouTube. This is going to stay where it is. It's also on storynight.org. It is, and all of the videos that we've done are on storynight.org. They're not all on the right YouTube channel. I'm working on that too, but some of them are still on Facebook from the old ones. But I want to thank all of you for being willing to, like I say, go into a different kind of format. I had hoped it would be half of what it was. And so it was so great to see all of you. We've been here almost 2 hours, and it hasn't felt like it to me. So I just wanted to read one thing. This is from The War of Art, and it's talking about creativity, and it's the ending. So I'm spoiling the ending of this book if you ever get it. I don't know if I recommend it or not. All I can say is somebody loaned it to me. I read it and I thought, okay, I need to buy that because I need to refer back to it. So I would suggest, I bet the library has it. look it up on the ways that you were instructed tonight. Go back in the video and do a tutorial and figure out how to borrow this book. And if it's not there, I think there's a way to request it. Am I right? Yes. So they'll make it
Yes.
happen. Yes. So I think that was all I wanted to say before I read this. And like I said, it starts, are you a born writer? But think of whatever it is you do. Are you a born writer? Were you put on earth to be a painter, a scientist, an apostle of peace? In the end, the question can only be answered by action. Do it or don't do it. It may help to think of it this way. If you were meant to cure cancer or write a symphony or crack cold fusion and you don't do it, you not only hurt yourself, even destroy yourself. You hurt your children, you hurt me, you hurt the planet. I'm not trying to shame anybody here, but this really hit me. You shame the angels who watch over you, and you spite the Almighty who created you and only you with your unique gifts for the sole purpose of nudging the human race 1 millimeter farther along its path back to God. Creative work is not a selfish act or a bid for attention on the part of the actor. It's a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got. Happy Hanukkah, everyone. Merry Christmas, everyone. We'll see you again in January. Good night.